Hi there. And I'm Father Alexander. This is St. Peter's Hove, and it's time for our 53rd step on our walking tour through the Bible and our final step in our consideration of the book of Deuteronomy. You are a follower of Jesus Christ, are you not? As am I. As a Catholic, one can truly say we are followers of Jesus Christ. No problem with that. If you're not a follower of Jesus Christ, you're not a Catholic. As a Catholic, are you also a follower of Moses? I think we ought to be. I think we're ignoring Moses. I think Moses is the great figure of the first five books of the Bible, and indeed he dominates the whole Old Testament, the whole Hebrew scriptures, and he is a presence also in the Gospels and in the letters of St. Paul. We shouldn't take the view that Moses has somehow or another been superseded. Moses is no longer important. Moses is a great man for us, a leader of God's people, as we call him in the liturgy. Now, the last few chapters of the book of Deuteronomy are essentially the farewell to Moses. There's a long song of Moses and nice poetry. There's also Moses blessing all the tribes, and there's Moses being told he's going to die, largely because he's not fulfilled his task perfectly. He's going to die before he enters the promised land. The entry into the promised land will be done by Joshua. And Joshua has Moses' hands imposed on his head, sort of ordination service. So he, the minister of Moses, the assistant of Moses, will now carry on Moses' work. Now, if you look at the 34th chapter, the final chapter of Deuteronomy, this is a sort of obituary of Moses. First of all, Moses goes up Mount Nebo, and then God shows him. It's not quite clear how God shows him, but I like to imagine it's sort of a film show, if you like. God shows him the entire promised land from Dan to Beersheba, right down to the Negev, and says, this is the land that I promised to give to your ancestors and that I'll give to the children of Israel. But you will not cross into it, he says on verse 4. So Moses' end is triumphant and yet also tragic. Moses' end is he's completed his task leading the children of Israel to the threshold of the promised land. Somebody else is going to continue that task. I think this is incredibly important. We're only here, all of us, for a time. Our achievements are, if they're any at all, will be built on by other people, and we're all dispensable. So the great thing about Moses is he's a great man, but he's also a man of great humility. He knows other people can carry on what he has started. And there it says, this is verse 5, there in the country of Moab, Moses, servant of the Lord, died as the Lord decreed. He buried him in the valley, in the country of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but to this day, no one has ever found his grave. Moses was 120 years old when he died, his eye undimmed, his vigor unimpaired. The Israelites wept for Moses on the plains of Moab for 30 days. The days of weeping for the mourning rites of Moses came to an end. Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hand on him, and him the Israelites obeyed, carrying out the order of which the Lord had given Moses. There's an almost Arthurian atmosphere to this, I feel. First of all, Moses is buried by the Lord, so the Lord takes Moses' body and buries it, and nobody will ever find his tomb. To this day, nobody has found his tomb. How did the Lord, how did God, who is after all a bodiless spirit, how did he bury Moses? I don't understand it quite. I wonder how a Jewish reader would understand this. Maybe if God dug a hole and put Moses in it, was that the Son of God? Was that Jesus Christ, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, in his human incarnation, which hadn't yet taken place? Maybe I'm falling into Trinitarian heresy here. It's strange. Nobody had ever found his grave. It's a little bit like King Arthur, isn't it? He goes off into the sunset, rowed away in a barge. Then, of course, he says, so there's a beautiful atmosphere in those lines. Those lines are perfect. Those lines are great literature. They really are, because they evoke so much. They tell us so much, and at the same time, they tell us so little. And then finally, we have two verses which are almost bald in their lapidary expression. Since then, there has never been such a prophet in Israel as Moses, the man whom the Lord knew face to face. What signs and wonders the Lord caused him to perform in Egypt against Pharaoh, all his servants in the whole country. How mighty the hand and great the fear that Moses wielded in the eyes of all Israel. So since that time, there's never been anybody like Moses. No prophet can compare to Moses. Nobody can overshadow Moses. Now, of course, we know that Jesus Christ overshadows Moses, but that's because Jesus Christ is not a prophet like Moses. Jesus Christ is not a prophet, he is the Word of God, rather than the prophets are those who speak the Word of God. So, great is Moses, is what this 34th chapter is saying, and there's never been anybody like Moses, so I think we should pay Moses more attention. I think we need to say, we need to follow Moses. We need to realize, first of all, make real in our own lives the quality of leadership that Moses gave to God's people. We also need to be nation builders like Moses. That is to say, we need to be community builders like Moses, congregation builders like Moses, and of course, church builders like Moses. Because they talk about in the first 5 books of the Bible, they talk about the community of Israel, the congregation of Israel, which of course is the ecclesia, the assembly of Israel. We are the assembly of God, we are the ecclesia, we are the church. Moses builds the church, the ecclesia, from nothing. A bunch of runaway slaves. And of course, it's a hard task that Moses has to build up the community. But we need to look to Moses and look to his example. Moses is quite often a totally fearless man. You remember he comes down from the mountains, he breaks the 10 Commandments, the tablets of the law, in huge rage because the people have betrayed the law. They have apostatized from God. He rebukes the people when it is necessary. Moses is fearless in proclaiming the truth. So if you want to be a great leader, also be fearless in proclaiming the truth. I think that's one thing we've got to say. And the other thing is, if you want to be a great leader, a great builder of the community, and fearless proponent of the truth, you also need to be a great judge and a great lawgiver. Moses is a great lawgiver. We must never, ever despise or discount the role of law in the church and in the Christian life. Jesus Christ is the supreme legislator in the church, as the Code of Canon Law says. Jesus Christ is the supreme lawgiver. Jesus Christ is the Pantocrator, the ruler of all. We are under his rule. We are in a community that is bound by rules. The greatest rule, of course, is love your neighbour. I don't think we should fall into this modern heresy of seeing law as the enemy. Law is our friend, and it sets a limit to action, and it sets a limit to within which we can flourish, and that's very important. Moses is a man who leads the people of Israel to a vision, or towards a vision, of human flourishing. Remember, these were slaves. We've got to remember that we were slaves to sin, and that we will be led to freedom insofar as we embrace the law of the Lord. Okay, great book, Deuteronomy, but now we're going on to something much more exciting, the history books, including the book of Joshua, which is the first of them. The history books are absolutely wonderful. So we'll be carrying on this walking tour through the Bible at a later date. All the best then. Bye.